Hey everybody, First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Penovich. We hit this right on time tonight. My watch says 8:01. Well, maybe not right on time. Well, let me get a quick update. There's a lot to talk about tonight. I'm going to do a short update because we can't really talk about the steering current stuff. We're just going to focus on the immediate impacts and what's going to happen in the next 2 days because it's kind of at the point where we need to really almost nowcast this thing. Let's get right to what's happening right now. And my camera keeps freezing, so I'll refresh it real quick. Here's a look at the radar, satellite together. Couple things to notice here. The eye has become very well defined, and we're actually seeing a strengthening storm now. In fact, this is probably going to be borderline, I would say borderline Cat 3, maybe in the next hour or so. And I say borderline because remember, Cat 2, Cat 3, the whole difference is only like 1 mile per hour. 110 versus 111 is essentially what's going on. Now, why is it getting stronger? Well, let's first look at the stats, and I'll show you why it's getting stronger in a minute. Winds are currently 110 miles per hour. It's still technically moving a little north-northwest, but you see this line here? That's 80 west. It hasn't crossed that. So, in my opinion, it's moving due north long-term, but sometimes the Hurricane Center waits for a couple more hours of that track before they make the change. The winds have come up to 110. Pressure is falling now. So the storm is gaining a little bit of strength. So why would it be gaining strength right now? Well, it's actually moving over some really deep ocean heat content. And what I mean by that is the Gulf Stream is right here. And you can see it's on the western edge of that. This is really deep, warm water that it's sitting over. And it's also getting vented by that southwest flow. What I mean by that, that southwest flow is actually helping to vent the storm. If I go back to the radar and satellite here, and widen this out, you see these high clouds streaming way up into Virginia. These high clouds are being pushed up here, so that's ventilating the storm. Basically, if you've ever had a fire or a fireplace or any kind of oven, if you pull heat out from the top, air gets drawn into the bottom and makes the fire hotter. Well, in this case, that venting causes the inflow to come in quicker, starts picking up more latent heat from the Gulf Stream, and essentially it's intensifying. And until it makes its turn to the northeast, I would expect that it's probably going to stay as strong or maybe get stronger over time. So here was the updated track. This was the 5 p.m. advisory. Winds 110 miles per hour, moving towards the north. I'd say about 5 to 6. Now, late tonight and early tomorrow morning, it's going to come very close to Charleston. No matter what, even if the storm was out here, that's still pushing a lot of water into Charleston. So no matter where it's in the zone, this cone, the water's coming. What the difference is, if it makes landfall here, it brings those 110 mile an hour winds to the coast. So the landfall location, the only thing that really changes is how strong the winds are in the immediate coast. It doesn't change the water coming ashore. We'll go out until Friday, and let me pause this real quickly, and I'll zoom in carefully here around maybe Georgetown area to Myrtle Beach, possibly Wilmington landfall. But as we get up here towards Friday at 2 a.m., this is about the time it starts pushing towards Carteret County and possibly making a landfall in the Outer Banks sometime on Friday. So I'm going to stop this right there. And this is really the part we're worried about. So at 2 o'clock on Friday, it's moving through the Outer Banks. So you can imagine the 100 mile an hour winds coming through these areas right here along the coast. So the immediate coast there would definitely see 100 mile an hour winds, maybe higher if the core of the deepest winds go through. Now, if we look at the wider view here, you can see that outflow I was talking about. I mean, there's a lot going on in this image. The first thing you notice, clear defined eye, dry air is punching way down behind the storm. There's a lot of dry air here, but the influence of this southwesterly flow is literally blowing the outflow way into the Atlantic. So I know that flow is there. The storm is telling us it's there by blowing all those clouds off to the northeast. The problem is that's the northern part. We need this part of the storm to get picked up and pushed to start moving. So every mile this moves north, it gets closer to that southwest flow, which is going to take it off to the north and east. The problem is it's going to get so close to the coast that the storm surge potential is going to be very high. Again, just to recap all the advisories, tropical storm warnings and hurricane warnings are in effect for all of the North and South Carolina coast and inland vicinities. There's also storm surge warnings up for the entire coast. You can see that in pink. Goes all the way up into the Norfolk area and parts of Chesapeake Bay as you get up towards the Hampton Roads area. That is an area where we see a lot of flooding, even if the winds aren't as strong as you might think in other locations. And the surge, my friends, is really the strongest thing we're worried about. But the winds will be an issue on the immediate coast. So let me show you real quickly those winds right now. There's the wind field. The yellow is the tropical storm force winds, which are already moving into South Carolina. These are already tropical storm force winds. These orange area is 58 mile an hour winds, and the red is hurricane force winds, basically 74 or higher. We'll stop it right here, and you can see the hurricane force winds making it maybe as far inland as Conway, up towards Horry County as it moves along 17 and Myrtle Beach area, and then heading up towards the Wilmington area. And then we'll go into time even further, and you can see those hurricane force winds moving into eastern North Carolina. So Friday, 3 o'clock in the morning, strongest winds and surge coming into Carteret County, this area right here. And then the Outer Banks getting oceanside flooding first, but as the winds swing around to the northeast, the sound side flooding is going to become an issue as well. I don't know why my map keeps moving like that, but... And there it is Friday at noon, moving off the Outer Banks, and then it's off into the Atlantic. So again, just to recap those wind speeds, I'm going to show you the forecast wind speeds. If I can find my graphic here. That kind of shows you the overall view, but I have a really good view of this with our futurecast model, which kind of shows this a little bit better as I grab that. So, sorry, bear with me as I grab this. So here's a look at our futurecast winds. You see the winds coming in. Notice how strong they are on the coast. And again, the gust, Myrtle Beach has a gust. It looks like 75 mile an hour winds there. And then scooting right through the Outer Banks. Hatteras, man, just getting clobbered Friday morning. So this gives you kind of a gauge on where those strong winds and timing going through that area. Then rain is also the other big concern, because we're going to have surge and flooding on the coast. Let me play this. So you see the area of biggest threat for flooding. So there's like a big crossover right here of heavy rain and surge. So along the coast, water is always our biggest concern. Water is the number one killer in these storms. Even though the winds are getting stronger, the water is really the most concerning part of this. So you got to get away from the coast. If you haven't evacuated yet, you still got a little bit of time. Please get to higher ground. Even if you are near the coast and you're going to wait this thing out, get up, get to the second floor. Make sure you got a way to get out, because if water comes in too quickly, we're going to have some real issues in some of these locations. And it just is not a good setup for storm surge. I don't like it at all, to be honest with you. I think we're going to have some really high levels and surprise a lot of people how high the water actually gets. So here's a look at the Futurecast radar. Kind of shows you how things unfold. And in fact, this shows the northeast churn a lot quicker than let's hope it happens like this, because this is going to bring it very close to Charleston tomorrow morning. Then during the day, getting very close to Wilmington. Tomorrow night, getting very close to Morehead City. And then crossing the Outer Banks. It actually makes landfall right there Friday morning and moves out to sea. So that's just a look at our guidance to show you some of those rainfall amounts. Now for my friends in Charlotte, and this is the viewing area I focus on, you can see how tight this gradient is for rainfall. I mean, look at that. It's weird. I'm going to be on the extreme west side of this thing and probably get no rain. Whoops. And there's going to be people just to the east, a couple counties away, that are going to get just absolutely inundated with heavy rain. And I'll show you that forecast here. So you can see that swath of heavy rain. Some of these areas in eastern North Carolina, right in here, this yellow area is a swath of the heaviest rain. So you're looking at amounts up in this area, approaching a foot of rain in some of these locations. And I'll show you, this is actually the Weather Prediction Center's outlook. That was just our guidance. I'll show you a look at that as well. And that kind of shows almost the exact same swath. And we'll put 7 to 10 inches on there. But there could be localized a foot to 14, 13 inches of rain out in that area. So it's time. I hope everybody's hunkered down or inland or ready to ride this thing out, because it's going to impact our coast regardless. There's nothing I can tell you right now that's going to show that it's going to miss us. Okay, And what I mean by miss us, the impacts will not miss the coast of the Carolinas. It's just too close. Even if it starts turning right now, let's say it did one of these right now, we're still going to see surge and wind. The big thing to watch tonight is how close it gets to the coast. The difference in track now isn't so much about the water, but the wind, how strong the winds actually get near the coast. Impacts back in here don't really change much because it's not going to be far inland. It's either on the coast or off the coast. The only options for a track now are essentially right in here. There's no track to go like this. So we don't see any track coming inland like now. I've got tons of questions about that tonight. Don't see any of that happening right now. So again, just to recap, I'm going to be doing another one of these coming up at 9 o'clock, believe it or not, but it's going to be cool. I'm actually going to bring in some meteorologists from my sister stations in Norfolk, Greensboro, and Columbia. So we're going to get 4 stations from the Carolinas and the Virginias to talk about this storm and bounce some things off from different meteorologists. So I'll push out a notification as well, but coming up tonight at 9 o'clock roughly, we'll do a 4-way kind of Facebook Live with everybody in there talking about the storm, and I'll have the chat up as well. You can answer questions or ask questions, and I'll try to answer them. If I can't answer them, I've got 3 other people to help me out for specific areas. So I like bringing in some local knowledge, people that know different parts of the state, different parts of the coast. I appreciate all the comments people are sending in right now. Tune back in at 9 o'clock. We'll do another one of these updates and have some really good information for you. And I will probably post a couple smaller updates tonight as we get into the overnight. And tomorrow, my goal is, hopefully with some sleep, is to do some 1-minute updates. Try not to do, maybe one big vlog in the morning, and then do a bunch of little updates just on how things are trending and who's going to see the worst. And basically what I want to do starting tomorrow is like, here's the areas out the worst has moved on, and here's the areas where the worst is heading your way. So we'll start doing that tomorrow into tomorrow afternoon, and especially tomorrow night as we get ready for the height of this storm. So hope that helps everybody. Make sure you go to my Facebook page if you haven't yet. I will post updates there. Wind updates, any kind of timing updates will all be posted there as we go throughout the night.